Welcome back to the Metal Exchange. Justin and Chris here with you for another week. Kind of a return to our original format. A bit of an easier week, only having to really digest one album. Chris, my friend, how are you and how are you feeling?
A little under the weather, but we power on and, it's all good. Just a little summer cold. Hopefully should be gone in a couple of days, but I'm hoping the worst of it is over.
Yeah, I know you've been kind of suffering this week, so I'm glad you're able to join us. I'm glad we're going to be able to get this out on time. For our Patreon members, earlier this week we released an episode that will be dropping in the main feed next Monday, and that is an interview with Prog Power USA's Milton Mendonca, who's been booking or promoting a number of Prog Powers now in conjunction with Glenn Harvison, who, it's funny because for a lot of people think that those Thursday lineups are every bit as good as the Friday and Saturday lineups. And this year is no different with Beast in Black and Vola. And we had an interesting conversation where we talk about how all that stuff kind of came together this year. And we talk about some of the past lineups and even kind of delve a little bit into the future and what his future might hold as promoter. So it's an interesting listen. And if you can't wait, please consider joining our Patreon. Otherwise, the episode will hit the main feed a week from today.
Yeah, I thought it was a really great chat with Milton, and I think it's like you said, there's a lot of great insights in how they prepare for the festival and things of that nature, and how the bands were chosen and things like that. So it was good. I enjoyed it a lot, and like you said, the Patreon people got to an early listen to it, which is kind of something we like to do. As soon as the episodes are completed, we get them out to the patrons, and this was no different. So we're kind of recording a little bit out of order, but I'll just have to remember to put in the right episode number when I edit the video version of the podcast. I got the Milton episode right, so I just have to remember to dial it backwards. Back one. Yeah.
I'm with you, and obviously I appreciate that. Should be interesting, and obviously this week we are actually covering one of his quote-unquote bands with the Halo Effect. But before we get there, have you had a chance to listen to anything new? I feel like it's been a while since you and I at least have talked about new music or stuff we've been listening to.
Yeah, it's the first couple of days where I wasn't feeling well, I had mentioned to you, I couldn't even listen to music because my ears were like so clogged that it sounded like one had like a headphone on that was louder than the other, and I was like, I just can't listen to music this way.
Should have put Emperor back on. It might have sounded good to your ears.
Yeah, I guess, or maybe worse somehow. But yesterday I was able to kind of jump back into catching up on some stuff. I finally got to listen to the new Mystic Prophecy album, Hell Riot, which I enjoyed quite a bit. I really enjoy the vocals because I feel like they're really unique. They're very like they're very like forceful, but also very clear.
Powerful vocals, for sure.
And it's just like really high energy, crunchy power metal. So good stuff there. I finally got to listen to the Supersonic Revolution Golden Age of Music, which was Aaron Lucassen side project, which it didn't grab me on first listen. I'm gonna have to go back to that. I don't know if I was just not in the right headspace, but not bad. Pretty cool. It's kind of a throwback to kind of that like 70s rock scene. I also listened to the new Sleep Token album, which I know you were looking forward to hearing my thoughts on it. It's never going to be my thing, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I think that the overhype surrounding their previous album might have made it like impossible for me to just get into, but I feel like this worked with me a little bit better.
I think this one is a little more palatable because the songs aren't as, I don't want to say drony, but there's the middle portion of that last album is a little Well, it's actually a lot inaccessible, but this I think is a little more geared towards the radio. Not that these songs are all going to be, top 40 hits or anything like that, but there's really no down period on the album, which didn't bother me, but I could understand why somebody who's driven to those melodies would be turned off by the last release. But this I think is a little more substantial all the way through.
Yeah, I'll definitely go back to it, but I liked it more than I thought I would. I started listening to the new Metal Church album, and I kind of liked it, actually. I got through the first 3 tracks before I got pulled away, so I'll be going back to that. I'm not, super familiar with their old stuff, so the fact that their singer who passed away isn't on the album anymore isn't really a deterrent for me, so I will... I'll go back to that, but still on the list, I still have to get to a few more things. But I did kind of skip ahead because there were 2 albums that came out this week that were really interesting. One of which you brought to my attention. I didn't even know this was recorded or was planned or anything. But Timo Tolkki released a acoustic album called Renaissance Acoustica. And it's all just these acoustic renditions of past songs that he had written, mostly from Stradivarius, but also there's a handful of tracks from his solo material. Has the great Alessandro Conti on vocals, and then he threw on 3 bonus tracks at the end from previous albums. Key to the Universe, which had Michael Kiske on vocals, Are You the One, which had Sharon Den Adel from Within Temptation, and Lord of the Rings, which I believe was a instrumental song from his first solo album, which we actually had mentioned when we talked to Ralph in our bonus episode about the vaunted mixtape. But really cool versions of just these songs, the Stradivarius songs in particular, Winter, Coming Home, Celestial Dream, Before the Winter, 4,000 Rainy Nights, and Forever, which are all pretty much the best of the Stradivarius ballads. Just really cool stuff. Alessandro's got such a great voice, so he was a good choice. I think Alessandro was also playing live with Timo Tolkki when Timo Tolkki was doing his live, I don't know if it was a Stradivarius throwback tour or whatever, but really good choice. Alessandro's in Twilight Force and Trick or Treat and sang with Luca Turilli, so he's got quite the resume. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. And also Voyager released their, what I would consider long-awaited album, Fearless in Love. It had been, I want to say, 4 years since their last album, and with all the hype that went into Eurovision, I was really excited to hear this. I liked it. I feel like with Voyager albums, the newer ones, they usually take me a few listens to really grab me. Not like the old days I would listen to White Shadow one time and my head would explode. But in this case, the newer stuff, it's a little bit more intricate, so it takes me a little bit. But I thought it was right on par with their previous album, which I enjoyed quite a bit. I think it was in my top 5 albums the year that it came out. So we'll see where this ends up landing. It did have the benefit of several of the tracks being out for quite a while. Dreamer, Ultraviolet, not Ultraviolet, sorry. Dreamer, Submarine, Promise, which was the big song from Eurovision, and Prince of Fire were all released ahead of the album. Submarine and Dreamer came out last year. Dreamer came out in January of 2022. So some of these tracks have been out there for a while, but good stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of getting back into the into the swing of things as far as listening to newer stuff. So I'll continue to try and get caught up. But I'm in pretty good shape. I think hopefully in about a few weeks I should be back on track.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a bit of a summer lull in terms of new releases. I don't think that there was quite as many as there were this spring, but if history is to repeat itself, once September rolls around, September, October, and pretty much through Thanksgiving in November, it gets pretty busy. And then there's a real lull in December, which kind of gives you another chance to catch up before all the new releases come out in January. But I just picked up the Voyager myself. I'm eagerly awaiting that listen. I'm going to probably listen to it later in the day today when I have a long drive ahead of me. But yeah, I'm really, really excited for this. I agree with you. I don't think that their most recent releases are a one listen and you're hooked type of thing. I think it takes a little time to marinate, but at the same time, you know what you're going to get from these guys and girls. So I'm looking forward to that immensely. And I just wanted to mention one other album that I listened to a bunch this week. I had not heard of this band, but it's a Norwegian band called, how do you say this? Avrst. And I'm going to spell that AVKRVST. Trying to, I guess, match Morgable for fused vowels in a prog rock band. But nonetheless, these Norwegian guys came out with an album called The Approbation. And I have to say, if you like old Porcupine Tree from like the In Absentia era, and if you like Opeth, you will go crazy for this band. They seamlessly go in and out of both styles. Emphasis more on the prog rock and the Porcupine Tree, but then there'll be these passages of really heavy prog metal with aggressive vocals, and then they seamlessly go right back into the prog rock stuff. Just a real heavy hitter for me, just because I'm a sucker for that stuff. And thanks to the aforementioned Glenn Harveston for posting it, because had I not seen it, I don't know that this would have come on my radar. Although it is out on Inside Out Records, so it is on a fairly major label, but really, really good album. I'll try to post a song or from the album this week. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this as well, because I think that there's some potential here for you too.
I'll have to check it out. I don't think I was even aware of it, so good to know.
Yeah, definitely. And getting to the matter at hand, we move from Norway to Sweden and the Halo Effect, their one and only album, Days of the Lost, which came out last year, to I don't want to say a ton of acclaim, but there was a lot of buzz behind this band before this album even came out. And I think part of the reason is twofold. Number one, it's a debut release on Nuclear Blast Records, which I think grabs people's attention right away because of the credibility, I guess, that label brings. And two, quite frankly, just the lineup, which is essentially all of the old guys from In Flames with a singer that people know and love, and that's Michael Stani from Dark Tranquillity. So you have a really powerful lineup in many ways, and immediately when they released the first single from this album, and the first single was Shadow Minds, which we'll get to momentarily, I think everyone's thoughts were, this is what they wanted In Flames to be the last 20 years. And I know that you are not so familiar with In Flames, but just to kind of walk you through the history, obviously a groovy melodic death metal band from that Swedish scene that kind of pioneered the genre in many ways. And In Flames was arguably the biggest of the bunch back in the mid to late 90s. And then they just kind of changed, for lack of a better word. They changed their style. It wasn't quite as aggressive. It was a little more metalcore-y in ways. But if you go back to the turn of the century with albums like Clayman and Colony back in 1999, this was some of the best melodic death metal that was really out there at the time. And then this was kind of a callback to those types of albums in a number of ways. And that was what the allure was for me. Let's start with In Flames. Are you familiar with any of their stuff? Do you know some of their songs? Do you know some of their albums? I'm kind of curious because it's an interesting listen to the Halo Effect, but not know some of those classic In Flames albums.
I don't know a damn thing about In Flames, I'll be honest with you.
There you go. So it's very interesting perspective.
Yeah, I remember when I had a radio show in college that they had some of their albums were in the studio, but I tended to play my own stuff, so I really was not familiar with them. So I'd be curious to go back and listen to something. But you want to know what the most fascinating personnel discovery I made regarding this album?
Can I guess?
I'm sure you can.
because this was a discovery for me as well. And if we're going to talk about the same thing, this is absolutely fascinating. But apparently, not only did Michael Stani sing on Days of the Lost, not only was he the frontman for decades now for Dark Tranquillity, but apparently he had a run in Hammerfall as well. Tell me that's what you were getting at.
Yeah. Apparently he was their vocalist before their first album came out, before Joachim became their singer. I didn't even know that Hammerfall had a previous vocalist before that. It's wild.
I would kill to hear those demos or whatever recordings might be out there of that. That is fascinating and was a complete shock to me as well. And when I think of Dark Tranquillity or I think of the Halo Effect, I don't think of Hammerfall just because the music is so different. And quite frankly, you hear some of Michael's cleans on this album. And even when I hear the cleans, which I happen to enjoy, I still don't think Glory to the Brave style Hammerfall, which is obviously their debut. So I would just love to hear anything they did back in, the mid 90s with him, his demos or 4 tracks or 8 tracks or what have you.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me. I would kill to just hear Hammerfall's first album sung with all harsh vocals just for fun. I think that would be hilarious.
Yeah, so a huge surprise for both of us there, just to kind of round out the lineup because the band, being that they're such a new band, they're still together, and quite frankly, their new album is coming out in the not so distant future, so it's something to look forward to. But it's Nicholas Englund on lead guitar, Peter Ayres on bass, Jesper Stromblad on rhythm, and Daniel Svensson on drums. And again, the band only goes back about 2 years. Coming together in 2021 with Shadow Minds, the first single coming out on November 9th, almost a year ahead of the album, which came out August 12th of last year. And I remember when that single came out, I said to myself, wow, I can't believe that the album was going to take so long to see the light of day, because typically you don't release a single 10 or 11 months in front of the album, but they did it. And credit to them. They definitely led with a track that I think whet people's appetites.
I was like, you mentioned Jesper Stromblad, and I'm like, why does that name sound familiar? And it turns out he was also in Hammerfall around the same time that Michael Stane was. Not to mention he's currently in the band Sira, which is the band that Jake from Amaranth is in after he left Amaranth, and he was also in Synergy. So,
yeah, it's a very incestuous lineup here, but yeah, been around the block more than once. He's also in Dimension. He was in Dimension Zero for a number of years. For those that remember them, so lots of overlap here in that Swedish scene. But I think that it comes together, and I guess with really one mission in mind, and that's to kind of give that modern feel to that old In Flames sound. And I think they hit the mark. If you like those In Flames albums, and I will pick one of them because I think you'd be remiss not to hear some of that stuff. It's amongst the first melodic death metal that I ever heard, going back 20-something years at this point. That was really a precursor for what this would ultimately be. And apparently if this, if it sounds like they're going to continue in that direction with their new release, which is due out, as I said, in the not so distant future.
Have you heard the new song? I didn't realize that it had come out already. I just grabbed it off of iTunes, but I haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, it's quite good. As I kind of alluded to, it's in the same vein, I think, as the first album. Yeah, it's called Path of Fierce Resistance. It's a really good song. It's short, accessible as far as melodic death metal goes. What I like about this band is that in many ways I don't find them to be a laborious listen. The songs, by and large, they're 3 to 4 minutes in length for the most part, and you get in, you get out, and you're on to the next track. And with the melodies that keep changing, it keeps the album quite fresh. When it comes to death metal or black metal or even melodic death metal, I don't need a 65-minute album. Give me 45 minutes, and I'm very, very happy, and I'll move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I don't think I would have enjoyed this had it gone on any longer. I think it was just it was the right length. and the songs are just kind of like really kind of quick bangers. I had a hard time choosing my song of the week because I liked everything pretty much evenly, like straight front to back. I thought it was a really balanced album.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that there's any duds. I don't think that there's any songs on here that are my song of the year from last year, but it's just a really solid listen. And the way I would describe them, the reason I would encourage you to check them out at Prog Power in a couple of months, they're a professional band. Everything about this is just professional. It's a good sound, good songwriting. I have no doubt they're going to be very tight live, and they're going to bring a very, very professional performance to the stage. This is not a band. I think back to Solution 45 when they played their debut show at Prog Power. Despite the great musicians in that band, the set was kind of, I don't know, not good at all because I just didn't think it was a great debut performance. It wasn't tight, but I know for a fact that these guys will put on a great show. So I think that when you put the whole package together, you're in for a treat. And again, they're only playing for an hour, so I think that much like the album, they're going to hit their mark, and then they're going to get off the stage, which is kind of what you want at a festival. You don't need everyone to play for 2 hours.
Fair enough. I will say I'm pretty sure Solution 45 set at Prog Power was the first time the band ever played live together.
It was. It absolutely was,
Yeah.
But it showed. Whereas these guys, they're tight, and they've been touring this album for the better part of a year now.
Yeah. I would expect this to be, like you said, just a very, really just a great sounding set. Like, just,
Yes.
Production wise, mix wise. I'm glad we did this because I listened to this album I think once or twice last year because a lot of people were talking about it, but it didn't make my list, and I think that had I listened to it more, I would have because I actually really enjoyed it, and now I'm definitely sold that I will be seeing their set at Prog Power. It gives me something else to look forward to, which was kind of the whole point of this anyway. I'm hoping the same happens with Vola over the next couple of weeks. I'm already, as we already know, I'm already locked in for Beast in Black. But so yeah, I'm glad we did this because this was a grower for me. Like, this was the sort of thing where I listened to it once and it was kind of like a shrug your shoulders and go meh. But then the more I listened to it and the more the songs started to feel a little bit more distinct from one another, I ended up really enjoying it.
Yeah, mission accomplished then. I'm glad to hear that. I listened to this album quite a bit last year and I liked it a lot. And then I really hadn't listened to it for a while just because, I moved on to other things. But as I go back to it, I think I liked it more now, and it was in my top 50 last year. I want to say it was around 25, maybe 23. But as I went back, I actually thought that just the whole package here was even better than I remembered it in a lot of ways. And, again, I'm not going to suggest it was my album of the year. It most certainly was not that. But there was a lot here that you just it kind of just met my appetite for what I'm looking for from an album like this, which is 40 to 45 minutes. This one happens to be 41. Short, accessible, melodic, not a lot of thought involved. And then I would move on to a prog album or something else. And then I come back to this and I'm like, it just got better and better. And I did like it last year. So I'm glad. And I guess with that, no better time than to, let's kind of jump into it. The album starts off with Shadow Minds, which I guess is in many ways kind of fitting, I guess, because if you had never heard, or if you had ever heard the single when it came out the year prior, certainly a good opening track. And I think maybe what jumps out right away before I even get into the song itself, very warm production, just very, not very, very pleasing production. And that's kind of interesting because they are a relatively heavy band, by musical standards, but it was just very warm, attractive production. And it starts off with this like tribal drum sound. And then once that riff kicks in, I immediately start thinking of that old In Flames stuff. Just that, but it's a riff, but there's a groove to it. And you can kind of move to the beat, almost like this rhythm that you can't get out of your head. And dare I say that Michael Stani's vocals about as accessible as you can get for melodic death metal. Would you agree with that?
Honestly, I wasn't really a big fan at first.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't find that it's inaccessible. I just, for my tastes, it just didn't click with me. But the more I listened to it, the more I kind of softened my stance on that. But it kind of reminded me of a less chaotic Children of Bodom, I guess would be the way I would put it. And I've always really liked Children of Bodom, so it was almost like Children of Bodom, took a Valium.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm actually really happy you said that because I don't hear it on this track, but there were spots on the album where I completely agree with you, and I was surprised because that's obviously much more power metal than this is, but certain sections of Bodom songs reminded me of certain sections of this song. What I hear on Shadow Minds is that it's kind of like Orbit Culture light with that really grooviness to it, but very, very heavy. But yeah, it's a really cool. I like that it has this little electronic outro, good opening song, good introduction to the band. But again, I don't know that it stands out much more than anything else on the album because top to bottom, it's a pretty solid release.
Yeah, I thought it was a good way to kick things off. The thing that I like about this band is that they're the type of band where like had it been all clean vocals, I would have probably absolutely loved the album because that's just my preference. But the reason for that is just because of how melodic the album is and just how crisp and clear the production is and everything. And there's good solos and it's just a really like I would have enjoyed this album, regardless of who the vocalist was. And I think that's kind of what powered the album for me in general.
I think that makes perfect sense. And I think with that, I have a very strong sense as to what your song of the week might be, but I'll save that for a little bit. The second,
maybe you could tell me because I'm not quite sure I know myself.
Well, it's funny. I have two songs in mind for mine, and I'm curious to see if. Well, I'll just get into it. Days of the Lost is probably one of them. It's not the one I'm going to choose, I think. But this is one of the best songs on the album for me. It's just an awesome drum fill and an awesome, awesome melodic riff that kind of kicks things off. And the way I would describe this is poppy melodic death metal. Like this is about as melodic and catchy a song, and it's almost written like a pop song, but for a melodic death metal band. I don't care what you call it. Catchy as hell. Love it. The chorus is fantastic. And the guitar work and drums just jump off the page on this. I think that it's a better song than Shadow Minds, and quite frankly, if I was going to try to get someone into the band that may not be aware of them, I'd probably start here. A definite song of the week candidate for me.
I would tend to agree there. I like it better than the first track as well. I like the part where it just gets kind of quiet before the chorus and then kind of gets loud again. I think it has just a little bit more variety than the first tune, but both really good tunes. This was one of the songs I liked. I don't know. It's like for me to say like this is one of the songs I like more. It just means I only liked it slightly more than everything else. Like I said, like this was kind of like whereas a lot of albums kind of go in a wave for me. Like this one I really like. This one, like this one was really just kind of like
balanced.
Yeah, like really just above average, but completely consistently from start to finish. But I do like this song. I really like the overarching guitar riff that kind of leads the song. I think it's just another really good tune.
So that brings us to track 3, which is a song called The Needless End. And this was the 4th of 6 singles from this album, which is, I don't know, nothing. I shouldn't say the five singles from the album, but still half the album released as singles. This song, and I'll say this about a lot of this stuff. I think there's a similar cadence to much of these songs. Nothing is super super fast, and nothing is, well, not really many slow ballady songs on the album. This one, I think, gives off a really strong Amorphous vibe more than anything else, or at least at the start. And then if you're going to get faster, this would be the song as it kind of picks up steam, but I wouldn't say it's markedly so, but I think it's noticeably faster than the first two, perhaps. What I enjoy about this, though, is the dichotomy between the chorus and the verses. There's definitely a distinct nature between those two, and also great bass lines that jump out probably more so than the first two tracks. Not my favorite instrumental section. I thought that was a little weak, but I do have one. I don't want to say concern, and it's kind of the opposite of something I said earlier. I had mentioned how I expect them to be just a really tight live band, but on a track like this, lots of keys, and I wonder if it's going to take away from the overall performance when you have to pipe in these keyboards, kind of like we talked with Beast in Black. Will the pre-manufactured keyboards take away from the overall sound? I'm inclined to say no, but I just wanted to flag that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair concern. I think it's compared to Beast in Black, they're less keyboard driven in general, so I don't know that it's going to be a major demerit, if you will, but hopefully it's handled well. Sometimes just the way that it's mixed in really makes all the difference, so we'll see. But I like this song. I didn't make that Amorphous connection, but now that you mention it, like totally in that vibe. It's a cool tune. It feels like it's at least at the beginning of the song, it feels like it's heavier than the first two, a little bit more darker, I guess. But again, another really strong track in my opinion. Probably not my favorite either. I think I like I probably like Days of the Lost. Was that the second track?
Yeah, well, I like that a little bit.
That was
better.
probably my favorite up to this point. But yeah, another good tune.
And we get to Conditional, the fourth track, which is really another banger on the heels of The Needless End. Did anything jump out to you about this track? Because I have some strong thoughts on this one, but I want to give you a chance to kind of lead this discussion. This particular tune was a little bit different for me as compared to the prior three, but for a reason that was a little surprising, and I don't think I ever picked up on this last year when I was listening to the album semi-regularly. But your thoughts on Conditional?
It kind of gave I got like an alternative metal kind of vibe from this.
Bingo.
Especially towards the beginning, like it just sounded like one of those songs you would have heard on the radio by I'm not sure who the right
Soundgarden.
Yeah, there you go.
I hear Soundgarden, and that's what I was kind of alluding to, if you will, when I heard this. I got the alt metal vibe on this, or the alt rock vibe, like a heavy alt rock band. A Soundgarden, maybe an Alice in Chains, but it was kind of cool because you don't really hear melodic death metal and alt rock blend together, but they did it on this track.
Yeah, agreed. Even like early Avenged Sevenfold might be a comparison to make. I mean, until the vocals come in, and then it's like, oh, yep, it's Halo Effect. But I definitely, that especially the beginning of the song just definitely felt like a different vibe than the previous tracks, and I thought it was really well done. It's just another really solid tune.
And I think that this one has a little bit more of a technical feel to it in many ways as you get deeper into the song. I don't know if that's just a testament to the songwriting or if they were trying to do something a little bit different, but a very, very solid track.
You know, now that you got Amorphous on my brain, now that's all I'm hearing now. It's just funny. Like, just especially the guitars are very Amorphous-ish.
The riffs, the way they construct the songs. And I'm not talking about the solos so much, but definitely the riffs in the instrumentals. Sections.
Yeah, that was a good call.
Now we get to a song that has a really spooky Dark Tranquility vibe, and not just in the vocals, but the performance itself, and that's called In Broken Trust. I'll just lead with this one. I was going to guess that this would be your song of the week, and it certainly is mine. I love this song. I think it's going to be a live favorite. And what I love about it is how damn catchy it is. It's groovy, it's catchy, and I love how there's certain spots where the band kind of fades out, and then all of a sudden the vocals are just shining through really prominent. and the cleans during the chorus are just a nice touch that you don't hear throughout the album, so it really jumps out when it's here. This has been the song that was kind of in my head all week long, and I just can't wait to kind of jump along and move my fist to the beat when we hear this live in Atlanta in another 6 weeks or so. Song of the week. Let's give it a listen, and then I want to hear your thoughts. This is called "In Broken Trust" by the Halo Effect.
There is a place that holds the answer when nothing calls to peace and free. When it ends and it begins with utter silence. When it holds what is better kept inside. Where do we go? Will the day that should never, ever come? I don't want fallen angels. I want to feel like I belong. I don't want broken promises. Our trust is failing.
So there you have it, "In Broken Trust," my song of the week. But I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you like this song as much as I do, or did it kind of just not blend into the others for you?
Yeah, it was kind of just another one of another strong track. Definitely felt like something that could have been a radio tune, just because the vocals are clean and more accessible, I think, to like a general audience. But it's got most of the songs in this album kind of have like this mid-tempo kind of vibe to it, and this one's no different. But yeah, I can definitely understand why you like it. It's got like the bridges are kind of spooky, but then the chorus kind of has a little bit more of a radio friendly kind of vibe to it. So cool tune, good choice, and yeah, another good one. I just feel like it's just like one 7.5 song after another for me, which might lend to what my final rating might end up being in this.
It's a very solid score, though, to be fair.
Yeah,
I mean, like a 7.5 is getting close to rarefied air.
Yeah, I honestly, well, the first time I listened to the album, I was just like, oh, this is going to be a slog, but it really, it wasn't. I'm glad I gave it more of a chance, and that's why some albums sometimes the first listen just doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and that's that kind of wraps up side one of the album, and we start with track 6, which is called "Gateways." This track is nearly 5 minutes long, which makes it the epic on the album, which is kind of funny. But I want to interject here because there's something about this song which is absolutely fascinating to me. Have you ever heard of a theremin?
Yes. I'm drawing a blank on what kind of instrument it is, but
this thing is it's an electronic instrument where you move your hands. You don't actually touch anything, but the way you move your hands, it
Right.
kind of makes the sound waves just kind of go up and down. I swear to God, there's a theremin on this track, or at least there is with some of the keyboard effects, and it's really cool because I've never used the word theremin on a metal podcast. I probably never will again, but it's kind of cool, and I like the use of it here. I think the bass jumps out as well, and it really kind of drives the verses. But the chorus is my favorite part of the song. It's almost like a Mirath type of vibe with this theremin type sound, and just a really catchy chorus. And one of the better instrumental sections on the album too. So to me, 2 gems back to back. Probably my 2 favorite tracks with Days of the Lost. But just jammed in the middle of this album, which is unique.
I really like the first minute or so of the song is kind of just led by the drums. It's kind of like this quieter intro where it's really just kind of the drums, the bass line, and the singer. And then there's like this little guitar noodle, and then it busts into like the heavy shit again, and it's like it's cool. Like for an album that I found to be pretty like solid all the way through. It does have like these little parts where if there's just these little pockets of uniqueness that kind of set each song apart from one another. Because like honestly, I would have said like the first time I listened to this album, it was just like 45 minutes of one song.
Right.
Just like this long, prog melodic death metal 45-minute epic, and now it's like, okay, now I can start to kind of pick these songs apart. But this one just has a very like deliberate kind of drum beat that kind of keeps the pace going for the song, and then the guitars will jump in and add a little bit of heaviness to it.
And to your point, I think that I agree. The intro to this song is great. The word I would use to describe it is intriguing. You just kind of want to know where this thing is going to go. And because it is the longest song on the album, they really give themselves time to kind of develop the rest of the song. But this is a great tune. I shouldn't say great. It's a very good tune. I think that the beginning really lends itself to where it ultimately goes.
Well said.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We get to another song that I think you might enjoy or might have enjoyed, and that's called A Truth Worth Lying For. A bit of a similar cadence to this, definitely riff-based, definitely groovy, but again, another song with clean vocals during the chorus, and I think it provides for an interesting dichotomy between the heavy verses and then these almost beautiful clean vocals on the choruses. Not a favorite of mine. I think the highlight here is probably the pre-chorus, which ramps up to the payoff during the chorus. Probably in my bottom 2 or 3 songs on the album, but certainly nothing to skip. A listenable tune.
Yeah, I just liked how different the way the beginning of the song is compared to the previous one, where that one was kind of like quiet and more drum led, whereas this one is just like flying guitars right off the bat. Definitely a Bodom-esque kind of vibe kicking it off, where you just have these really fast guitars. The song feels a bit faster than some of the previous songs. I don't know that anything gets much faster than this on any of the album. But yeah, my thoughts are pretty much in line with yours. Again, anytime the clean vocals come out, it's cool because like going back to the new Voyager album, there's harsh vocals sprinkled here and there, and it's kind of like the opposite on this album, where there's like clean vocals sprinkled here and there, where it's like a pleasant distraction from the general sound. And with Voyager, it was similar, where hearing more harsh vocals was kind of cool.
And it's Alex that does the growls there, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, and he's quite good at it. If that is him, cheers to him. But yeah, it's cool. I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I think I know what my song of the week's going to be at this point, and I'm trying to remember if there's clean vocals on it or not. But that is not going to make or break what makes the song of the week for me on this album. Honestly, even though it is a pleasant to hear, I think that just the album is really meant to have like heavier vocals. I think, and that's really what drives the sound in 95% of the album.
Yeah, I agree with you. 100%.
And again, I think this is another song that would have made for a good radio tune.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you could say the same about the next track, Feel What I Believe. I hear a touch of pop on this song. It's almost like melodic death metal with pop and some metalcore elements, which is a blend of stuff that usually you don't say together. But this is a really good song on the back end of the album. The drumming here, I think, really sets the tone. But the riff here, this is where I heard Children of Bodom loud and clear. The riff on this track may as well have come off of the Bodom album that we talked about in the archives, after the untimely passing of their key member. I just think that there's something about this song. Maybe it's where it's placed on the album, or maybe it's just the way they constructed this thing. But I really enjoyed this track, but I don't know that it would have jumped out to me if it was like the first or second track on the album.
Yeah, definitely agree. Definitely a Bodom-esque riff going on here. Yeah, just again, another really solid tune. This one has a little bit, this one's probably one of the more high energy tunes on the album, but yeah, I like this one too. I will say there was not really a song in this album that I would probably rank lower than like a 7, I would say.
Yeah, there's nothing skippable. You can, and that's what makes for, as I said, kind of an easy listen. And we've only got 2 left. The next track is called Last of Our Kind. This one, the intro kind of sounds like a soundtrack to an old movie, but the song itself, really powerful. And this one gave off vibes of another melodic death metal band, but this time out of Sweden and out of Finland and into Italy, of all places. This reminds me of the band Raintime, and I happen to love that band's first 2 albums, and I think that that's why this song is so attractive to me. Just it gives me a strong Raintime vibe.
Raintime mentioned 2 episodes in a row, by the way.
Yes. How ironic is that? I mean, that's saying something. But what's interesting about this, more than maybe any other track on the album, is the fact that it kind of ends abruptly, so it leaves you wanting more, but in a good way. It just kind of ends out of nowhere. But I thought that was a cool effect.
Yeah, it's the pull me under effect, if you will.
Yes, exactly. Good comparison. What did you think of this one?
Another really solid tune. Like, I'm kind of running out of things to say at this point because everything's just been really good up to this point, and I think I don't know that we're breaking any new ground at this point in the album, but yeah, just another really good tune. Again, this one feels a little bit more on the faster tempo side, or at least as fast as this band's going to go on this album. I'm excited to hear how this translates to a live setting. I think it's going to be really enjoyable, and with a live crowd of people getting into it, and with a good mix. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be one of the highlights of the 4-day festival.
That's great. I'm glad I will be next to you to watch this one. I'm glad that it's not a skip. And I have a feeling they're going to play most, if not the entire album, just because of the length of the set and the fact that they don't, I can't see them playing more than 2 or 3 new songs for an album that isn't out yet. But this album itself ends with a track called The Most Alone. And this track is really melodic. And since you have no tracks left, why don't you tell us why it's your song of the week?
Actually, my song of the week is Beast in Black's True Believer for the second week. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, what's funny? The last time I listened to this album, again, I was like really trying to focus on what my favorite song was, and I get all the way to the end of the album, and I'm like, shit, like I still don't know what it is. And then this last song comes on, and as soon as that opening riff kicked in, I'm like, yeah, this is the one. I mean, it just I love just that, the whole, that like spooky keyboard mixed with that catchy riff at the beginning that just, it pulls you right into the song immediately. And like we always say, if I'm going to hook you, you're going to be hooked. So I thought this was a perfect song to end the album with. It's the one that I think I just enjoyed the most, although probably only slightly more than the rest of the album. But I thought that this was the most memorable riff on the entire album, and I think that's what really just made it the most enjoyable track for me. So let's give it a listen, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and I'm excited that we don't have to talk about another album after this.
Close up to ourselves, the jagged edges of our past, the years apart, relived in apathy denied. I see longing through the timeless eyes. I see purpose gone astray through a prism of lies. I see longing. I see purpose gone astray. Why does it matter? The higher we rise, the
I think The Most Alone is a really good way to go out. I think it's one of the more melodic tracks on the album. I don't. I think the instrumental breakdown isn't the most technical piece of music on the album, but it's really slow and effective. And although it's nothing new per se, it just harkens back to that sound that they were going for, which is that turn of the century In Flames sound. And they do it well. So like I all I can say is I look forward to the next album. I look forward to hearing the vast majority of this album live, both at Prague Power and then again at 70,000 Tons. It's going to be a good show. And then, of course, with Vola and Beast in Black going on afterwards, it just should be a really good afternoon and evening of music. So I guess that begs the question, does it get the 7.5 that you were kind of leaning towards earlier on, or, up or down from there?
You know what? I'm going to give it a 7.875, even slightly higher. I just think that it's a 7.5 almost feels like it's doing a disservice. So this
hot for you. It took a little bit of time, but as you let it marinate, I guess this one really kind of jumped off the pages a bit.
Yeah, for sure. No, wait, let me rescind that. My brain is a little. I meant to say 7.75.
That's okay. I mean, at fractions, we're never. This isn't the math exchange. But I'll be honest. It's the same score for me as well. I don't think there's anything revolutionary here. I don't think you're going to say I've never heard this before. It's the top of the genre, but it's really enjoyable, and it's right near that that level where you'd say it's an all. I think once you get 8 and above, you're talking about unforgettable albums, and this is really close to it. So kudos to them for that. I think a 7 or a 7.5 is kind of a low score for something like this because, like I said, I enjoyed the album last year. I enjoyed it even more this time around. So kudos to them for that.
There you go. It looks like we're on the same page here. I look forward to seeing this band with you at Prague Power, and I definitely urge the listeners to listen to the interview with Milton next week, because he talks about the why he chose these 3 bands that we are discussing this month to kind of be on that top 3 bands of his lineup with with 0 Hour and Seven Kingdoms finishing up the lineup, but he kind of explains his mentality in booking those bands in particular. But I'll just say this, at least based on the 3 bands that we're talking about in long form, 3 bands that couldn't be more different from one another. So I think, at least as far as variety goes, definitely have that here. The jury is still out for me as far as Vola goes. Check back in 2 weeks where I hope to be an expert in all things Vola, and I'm also very curious as to why they are Volas in all caps. So we'll delve into that.
All that and more. But I'll say this: I think that having that diversity, a melodic death metal band, for all intents and purposes, a prog rock band, even more so than prog metal, arguably, and then obviously that melodic quasi power metal style of Beast in Black, it will lend each set will stand out separate and apart from the others. And if you're longing for something different, you definitely get that here.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think about the lineup on day 2 as a whole, you're starting with a power metal band into like a very technical prog metal band, into a melodic death metal band, into a prog rock band, into a power/melodic metal band. I mean, you really kind of
every band sounds different.
Yeah, and it's just this really great, I think, wave of styles that I thought they did that Milton did a good job with that last year as well, with Seven Spires and Pain of Salvation and Stradivarius kind of being the top 3 bands. That was a great mix of bands, along with Will to Run and the other band that whose name escapes me, that that Soto came out and played keyboards with. I forgot.
Oh yeah,
they were great too. I was my favorite day of the fest last year was Thursday. Actually, I stayed in the venue for all 5 bands, which I don't normally do. And you could go back. We did a whole review of that whole Prog Power, but that day was so memorable for me. Honestly, the whole week was, honestly, but that day in particular, music wise, just being able to be there for the whole day of songs or the whole day of bands and just really enjoying it. So I'm looking forward to something similar, and with the hotel situation being what it is, I think we're going to be spending a lot more time in the venue this year, maybe seeing more bands than we would have planned, because we just don't have that hop, skip, and a jump back to the hotel that we're used to. Going back and forth is going to be a little bit more of a slog, so I think we're probably just going to park it in the venue like the old days, and just kind of stick around. Maybe order a pizza, have it delivered to the upper deck
while Delane is playing.
Delane's playing,
yeah,
exactly.
So there's a tradition there as well. But kidding aside, for those that don't know, the kind of home base for this festival is a hotel that's a block and a half away from the venue, but they're under renovations. So everyone is staying somewhere else this year, which means that they're kind of in and around Midtown Atlanta. I'm at a hotel, you have an Airbnb, and everyone is just kind of, it's not as convenient as it was to just walk to your room in between sets or to skip a set and veg out in the room. So yeah, to your point, I think that was probably the only way you were going to watch 0 Hour set, and maybe they got you because, I know that technical prog, it may not be your favorite, but where are you going to go for that hour?
You never know. I mean, the last time Green Carnation played at Prog Power, which unfortunately was one of the few years that you couldn't attend, I was kind of pulled into their set from via Knops, and I wasn't really planning on seeing much, if any, of it, and I ended up staying for, I think I left 10 minutes left into Day of whatever it's called.
Light of Day, Day of Darkness.
Yeah, thank you. Wasn't going to get that. I was so blown away by the musicianship involved that I didn't even care that it wasn't really my favorite thing in the world. I was just so hyper focused on the actual technical aspect of it. So it's funny. Some of the sets I never thought I would stick around for, somebody will keep me there, and I'll end up getting really surprised. I actually stuck around for Snowy Shaw's set a few years back and was like, wow, I kind of glad I stuck around for this because it's pretty nutty. But
so,
yeah.
To that end, I guess that begs the question. We'll just completely go off topic here. Green Carnation is playing again. Are you going to check out their set?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know that there's going to be too much of anything that I missed this time around, just because, like you said, where am I going to go? They serve food in the venue, so leaving to eat isn't as much of a concern. There's drinks in the venue, so leaving to drink isn't much of a concern. We're not really buying CDs anymore, so going to the vendor room isn't much of a concern. There's not really too many vendors left selling CDs. So we're going to have to kind of go back to what brought us to the festival in the first place, and that's because there's bands playing at it. So
I like it. I want to mention just a few news items which I think are noteworthy. Anyone that was going out to California for the Power Trip Festival this fall, unfortunately, Ozzy Osbourne has pulled out. He is unable to perform this October. So, unfortunately, they had to get a replacement. I think they did a very, very good job with who they got. If you recall, this is the festival with Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, Metallica, Iron Maiden, and Tool. And replacing Ozzy is Judas Priest. So this is kind of a very, very, it's kind of the Godfathers in many way, or I don't want to say the Mount Rushmore because I'm insulting thousands of other bands, but when you think of hard rock and heavy metal, those are kind of the names,
Does Rob Halford still perform with Priest? I know that he's been in and out over the years.
Yes, he's there. So you're getting Rob Halford. He'll be out on his motorcycle, I'm sure. Leather abound, but yeah, it's kind of a cool replacement. I know some folks going to the festival were a little upset that Ozzy had to cancel, but I'd be excited for Priest.
I feel like you're probably going to get at least a better vocal performance out of Rob Halford than you're going to get out of Ozzy these days. I don't know I can't speak for the rest of Ozzy's band. I'm sure they're all phenomenal musicians and what have you, but I guess Ozzy's coming out of retirement was a little bit premature, because we had joked about how we talked about him announcing his live retirement, and then like a couple months later we were announcing that he was playing at this festival, so it was kind of like
Can't make it up.
yeah. So but I mean, I know his health has always been in question, especially recently, so I'm wondering if he's just not physically up to it. But hey, if this thing blows up, you never know, there might be another one next year, and maybe Ozzy will come back and with the rest of Sabbath. Who the hell knows, you know?
God only knows. It's funny because I was, when a couple of months ago we saw Halloween and we talked about how they were, basically they entered the heavy metal Hall of Fame. Well, there's another band that was recently announced for the Metal Hall of Fame at a show out in California as well, and that's Armored Saint, a band that's been around for 40 years. Kind of an interesting addition. I think that they certainly deserve a place in there. But Armored Saint, the next member of the heralded Metal Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I can't argue with that choice. Another band that I would not know pretty much anything by if it wasn't for them playing at Prog Power and diving into their material and ending up becoming something of a fan, actually.
Yeah, we got to cover an Armored Saint album. I've had them on my list for a while, and I always pass up that opportunity for something else. But in due time, I think we will definitely select one of their albums. And I grabbed tickets to a show that was recently announced because Tesseract has announced a U.S. tour. It's funny, I spoke to Knops about this as well, but they are kicking off a tour, Charlotte, North Carolina, October 5th, doing a run of shows in the Southeast, coming to New York City on October 13th. I look forward to that. And then a bunch of shows in Canada, and then they go out west, and the tour ends back where it started at, kind of in the central southern U.S. with shows in Atlanta and Nashville on November 13th. So they're doing a run of shows for about 5 weeks. I've never seen them live. I know that they have new material coming out. There's an album called The War of Being. It's due out on September 15th. So obviously I kind of expect they play a bunch of the stuff from that album on this tour. Should be interesting. I know a lot of prog fans are happy to see Tesseract live. They, needless to say, Daniel Tompkins, always releasing new material, always kind of can expect something interesting from him. So we'll see how the new album is.
Any openers on that tour that you're aware of?
There was one band that was announced as an opener. I believe the band is called Alluvial, Alluvial. I would be lying if I said I've heard anything from them.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah, so that is Tesseract. We thank everyone for listening. If you like what you hear, give us a like and a follow. Consider joining our Patreon, and tune in next week for a very exclusive interview with Prog Power's Milton Mendonca. And if you are not familiar with the festival or have no idea about it, or are from out of the country and don't plan on attending, listen to the episode anyway. I think you get a real insight into what goes through the mind of a promoter or booker when they're putting something like this on.
Yeah. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think we went almost a full hour, right, with Milton. So it's a pretty meaty interview, but we hadn't had an interview in a while, so it was good to talk to somebody. Milton's definitely an interesting guy to chat with. So I definitely echo those sentiments. I wholeheartedly endorse this interview and hope that everybody checks it out. And I think it kind of makes for a nice side. I was going to say side piece, but I don't think that's the right terminology.
Don't think we can say that. We may get canceled. But anyway, should be a very interesting episode. We'll come back the following week with the Vola discography, and then we have our requests lined up for the first week in August, and then it'll be back to your regularly scheduled format, I think, for the most part through August and September.
And we'll definitely do a Prog Power episode after the festival's over, like we did last year, kind of recapping everything and stuff. So that's definitely in the plans as well. So stuff
Well
to look
said.
forward to.
Feel better, my friend. I will catch you soon.
All right, take care.